All right, what is up, all of our liberty-loving friends? This is the Good Morning Liberty podcast, live at FreedomFest in South Dakota. My name is Nate Thurston. Of course, we got Charles Chuck Thompson over here.
Finally.
And with us, I actually said the name that time.
You said Chuck this time.
Yeah, you're right. And with us, very special guest from Atheists for Liberty is Mr. Thomas Sheedy. How you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about yourself?
Doing pretty good. You know, we're about to wrap up everything right now. Have you had a good time?
We've had a great time here at Freedom Fest. The amount of the welcoming that we've had and the attention that we've received at our booth is just enormous. And the problem with me is that because we've gotten so much positive attention, I can't stay in one place for too long.
Yeah.
Just because there's so much to do here and so much of a welcome we've gotten. I keep forgetting that we have to pack up soon because I want to keep the booth open for as long as possible because there's so much demand.
Yeah.
There we go.
I think I could handle another day of it, and there's been enough people, that we could interview. There's so many more people to talk to. Have you been able to make the rounds and do a lot of talking with
Quite
people?
a bit, yeah, definitely. This has been my fifth interview as well. Just the amount of attention that we've gotten, the amount of growth that the Liberty Movement has received. I can understand why you think there should be another day. I think there should be another week of activism here in South Dakota.
And then we don't have to go back to the real world. We could just stay out here doing this all the time. Yeah.
Activate the whole time.
That would be good. So what, at first when you think about this idea, Atheists for Liberty, it could sound a little controversial, something like that. But you said you've had a really good reception here, right?
Oh, definitely. The Liberty Movement has welcomed us with open arms. And I must say there are far more atheists at Freedom Fest than I even thought. We've made the case over the last year and a half that the Liberty Movement and the conservative movement as well, it's gotten far more secular, it's gotten far more atheistic. There's increasingly number of atheists and agnostics and secularists at these conferences. I've even seen it at CPAC and the Turning Point Student Action Summit. But at Freedom Fest, at the Libertarian events, it's like 55 to 60% atheists, in my opinion. The amount of atheists that have shown up at our table is just insane. And the demand that we've gotten is, for our supplies is insane. We're nearly out of some of our materials. And I'm so stunned, I'm so shocked, but I'm so glad at the same time. Freedom Fest even gave us a letter saying, we loved your presence here so much at Freedom Fest. We want you guys back, and we want you on our planning committee. And I just don't have any more words besides that.
I'm really glad you guys have had such a good reception. Yeah. I think people could take it, would potentially take it the wrong way. But when I was speaking to one of your guys the other day, I told him that I was actually a really big fan of Ayn Rand. And when I heard the idea Atheists for Liberty, now neither one of us are atheists, just so you know, but I actually really support the idea because I don't think that the idea of individual liberty should be based off of religion really whatsoever. And
Absolutely.
I think a lot of people say conservative and maybe even Christian libertarians, people like that, they think that that this basis comes from religion, but really I think it goes deeper than that. You don't have to have the religion to actually care about individual liberty.
Absolutely. Take me as an example. I do not believe in a supernatural being, yet simultaneously I believe in individual liberty. I believe in freedom of speech and expression. I'm personally a big gun rights advocate. I have a conservative stance on illegal immigration. These are all stances that don't require a belief in the supernatural to have. Yet we've been told, especially in the past, for decades and decades onwards, that in order to be on the political right in the United States, or in order to not fall into the camp of the left, you must hold a supernatural belief, which I think is incredibly preposterous and I think damaging to the liberty movement in the process. The claim that I make on every show I go on, and I'll make it here as well, is that atheism is the fastest growing quote-unquote religious demographic in the country. We're between 23.5% to around 27 to even 30% of the U.S. population, and we're growing. I'm a Zoomer. 1 of every 3 Zoomers are non-religious. It's just a fact of life, and the United States is experiencing this demographic shift more and more rapidly every single year. So if the liberty movement wants to survive, because the left is really caring about getting every single demographic on their side, hogging every demographic, making sure they win the culture war by getting everyone on their side, we have to play the same game. We have to think from a demographics perspective because we are at war. It is a culture war. And so why not get the fastest growing religious demographic by a factor of 10 in this movement? And that's what we're here to do. We're here to show that we agree with the liberty movement on so many values. We have a lot of allies here. There's a joint fight against wokeness, which has become a new religion. I care about secularism. There's a lot of people here who care about secularism too. There are a lot of atheists here too. There's a big white space here. And Atheists for Liberty is here to fill that.
Yeah, and that's interesting because You mentioned that new religion on the left, let's say the wokeism, right? It blows me away, the dogmatic approach, from the left or
about the government,
or
it's
even
like government
the right,
is God now,
right,
Yeah.
or even the right, because you have left wing populism versus right wing populism now, with Trump. But describe for me like what it's like to, or I just want to say that I think it's necessary that we have all these different groups that are all fighting for the same cause.
Absolutely.
So the fact that we're being inclusive of atheists, I think, can only further the liberty movement, and we don't want to force ideas on anyone anyway.
Exactly.
Even if you are a Christian or
Right.
a Buddhist or whatever it is.
One of the core tenets of Atheists for Liberty is religious freedom. I'm one of the most militant atheists that you'll ever meet. I'm not the biggest fan of faith and religion. I think humanity's ready to move past that. That's my personal view. But we care about religious liberty because as soon as you get the government instilling its own personal morality onto people, it's a very slippery slope. It can happen to any group of people. It can happen to any denomination of Christians. It could happen to Muslims. It could happen to Jews. It could happen to atheists. And we've seen that happen throughout the years. We've seen that happen throughout history. One of the great things about the United States is that it was a country built on religious freedom, getting out of places where there was constant religious persecution. We want to make sure that the United States does not fall in that same camp, and the woke religion is definitely a big threat to that. So
I have to ask you, your lapel pin, is that an Alabama A, or is that just
everybody
your
asks me,
atheist?
is it Alabama? Is it Arkansas? I went to SUNY Albany when I was an undergrad. People ask me, okay, Tom, is that Albany? It does stand for atheist. I used to be part of the new atheist movement. It was a big political phenomenon in the 2000s and into the mid-2010s. And you have famous atheists like Richard Dawkins and the late Christopher Hitchens wearing this A on their suits. And I wear it to show that I am so proud of so many of those people that began that movement years ago. And even though it was destroyed due to social justice, I feel like many of us are continuing what they started. And this is to honor their legacy and what they have done for the world.
Well, I think a lot of people would.
As long as it's not Alabama. That's I'm fine.
You're fine with the atheist, not Alabama. Okay. No, I think a lot of people would falsely make the assumption that when you're atheist, that means that you don't have any morals,
Right.
that you don't care about people, that you're. That I would hear this I've heard this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
But can you have morals without? This reminds me of the Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson debate. Actually, that's what it reminds me of. But can you have a moral system without that religion?
Absolutely. We've seen that be the case for many years. If you talk to, say, conservatives from Australia, you talk to conservatives from Britain, you talk to conservatives from Europe, you talk to conservatives from Canada, there's a good chunk of people in power, even on the political right in those modern Western countries, who don't believe in God. They come to the United States sometimes and they see the overt religiosity on the right, like you have to be religious in order to be conservative or libertarian, and they go, WTF, what's going on here, guys? And they've lived plenty of moral, happy lives throughout their lives. So I do find it to be quite interesting when that take is made, but I've been noticing it far less and less because atheists have been accepted more and more in American society. But it's a very good question. And the answer to that is that for me as well, I've grown up in a very good household. I've been taught fair morals, and I've never really cared about the church. I was raised Catholic for 15 years, but I always thought that me doing good was just doing good for the sake of doing good, not because some magical God told me to do it. And I held the same thought even when I was a Christian. I just always wanted to be a good person because I got a powerful and good emotional feeling after just being a good human being. And I think more and more Americans are waking up to that.
I'm just going to tell you some of the things that I've noticed in the society is that a lot of atheists would actually go more towards the socialist aspect of things. I do believe. And I don't know if that is some type of deep-seated problems with, say, the Christian conservative movement and thinking that also has to do with capitalism and our current systems of government and all of that. But what would you say about the people who end up saying that socialism is the way to go versus individual liberty?
I think it has to do with a wide variety of factors. You mentioned Christian conservatism. That is definitely a big factor. The idea that, the right wing is the Christian wing of politics, therefore I'm going to be an atheist. I started out as a Democrat because I was in favor of church-state separation. So when I finally got started in politics when I was in high school, I signed up and registered for the Democratic Party and not the Republican Party, not the Libertarian Party, because I thought, oh, well, they're the secular party. They're in favor of church-state separation. They're in favor of upholding the Establishment Clause, so I'm going to go along with them. Then after learning about a wide array of other political issues besides being this one single-issue voter, I then realized, wow, that party's not really for me. Although, by the way, we're 501c3. This is just my personal view. And then the second view is this. One of my problems that I had with the atheist movement is that even though we were a counterculture in many ways in the 2000s and 2010s, I think we were a little too much of a counterculture. I've been to some atheist conferences, and there was somewhat of a feeling where anything goes. We're going to wear like the messy T-shirt, and we're going to look like we're from a rock concert, instead of looking like politicians, instead of looking like professional people that could make a very good case for why America should embrace secularism.
Sounds
and atheism more. Yeah, exactly. A little too libertarian, in my opinion. Optics. I tell people all the time, optics is everything. So I think we were a little too counterculture. And then as well, the stereotype sadly existed that, oh, the right wing, the evil right wingers, well, they're very religious, so they must be greedy with their capitalism too, because they believe in their authoritarian God. I think it was just a very bad move optics wise that the right has made throughout the years, but I'm glad that, through baby steps and through activism, and I think the anti-woke movement too, it's kind of secularized the right, and it's made the right far more welcoming than it was in years past.
I feel like organizations like Atheists for Liberty actually, it gives atheists a place to stand for something rather than be against something. Right. So now I belong to a group because, regardless of whether we think, there's an all-powerful God or whatever, I do think deep down humans need a narrative, right? They still, you have to get that moral substructure from somewhere.
From something.
Right?
Yeah, I agree with that. Jordan Peterson was a great example of this.
Exactly, and I thought he made a stellar argument against Sam Harris by saying, okay, in your made-up scenario, there's good and there's evil, right? So where does that come from?
Right.
So there has to be a narrative, and so I think, if it's not going to be religion, right? If it's not going to be because religion brings people together. It gives everybody the same path that they're going down, and now you can expect something. Like,
and the sense of local community too.
Yeah, and I know. Okay, so I know Nate's a Christian. He probably's not going to murder me, right? And so so now you can put that in your mind.
Yeah.
Well, I think the same thing for these organizations, for people who don't believe in an all-powerful supernatural God or Buddha or Muhammad or whatever you want to say.
Right.
That you have an organization now. You have a narrative. You have a story. You have a path where people can know each other, know what their morality is, and they can be for something rather than against, the Christians or against something else. And I think that's so important that we got to find these things that we're for and not just against.
And it's pretty much a race against time. You're seeing wokeism infiltrate and derail nearly every institution, yet you also have secularism and atheism growing. Well, okay, even if you're not a fan of secularism and atheism growing, we have to deal with the reality of our time. We know that people do need stories. We know that people do need narratives. So we do have to find a secular alternative to what's happening. Even if you're a religious person, you can see the writing on the wall, you can see the statistics. And that's why it's so important that we come up with these solutions together quickly before it's too late.
What kind of activism have you been doing? What's your strategy for getting out there to people? And what are kind of the goals of the organization? Maybe not just from a standpoint of having a just talking about the problems versus doing something to solve some problems.
So we first started Atheists for Liberty out by premiering at CPAC in 2020. We have a strategy called being the atheists in the room half the time, where if we are present at an event, the narrative will change. And as well, if you get more people in your organization, you get people to vote in the straw poll saying that you like the atheists, it changes the narrative then and there, which means then that more and more atheists are able to join these movements and help grow these movements. A few other things we've been doing too, we have a lot of online programs. So we've been educating a lot of our members through various fun trivia nights. We've been educating people on science. We've been educating people on various reasonable issues, politics, religion. And we're having a speaker series soon, coming in August, where we're going to be interviewing various different people from the culture war, people in politics, religion, philosophy, etc., on why they support liberty and why they're atheists, how we can band together despite our differences. We stand for 5 main principles in the organization. We care about individual liberty. A big plus. I'm sure we can all agree on that. We want to promote a free exchange of ideas. We're anti-woke.
Can I say amen?
Oh, I appreciate it. We're anti-woke. So, the whole anti-SJW crowd, they're going to come in with us. That's that's half of what we do. We support and defend the Constitution of the United States, which we believe is the greatest document written in the history of mankind. We care about religious freedom. Religious freedom is really, really, really big, because if you tear away the free exercise clause of the Constitution, it could affect atheists too. And we want to defend secular government. We don't want people's private religious beliefs becoming public policy in a religiously neutral country. It just shouldn't be the case. The whole big same separation between church and state fight that other atheist orgs have done, we want to continue that too. So those are the 5 main principles. And as we expand our programs, as we expand our content, we're always going to keep those 5 values in mind. And the 3 F's that we give, we put this on all of our branding. How do you give an F, Thomas? Well, we care about 3 of those. And that's our tagline: free speech, free thinking, and freedom for all. That's how we mold ourselves, and that's how we're going to keep going into the future.
That's awesome. And I think, a large part, because I consider myself a Christian, so I think in large part the Christians have been a major problem in America because they are constantly pushing people, basically shoving it down people's throats, which is the opposite of what the gospel actually talks about.
And don't you find it to be interesting?
Sorry. I was just going to say that I get very frustrated at the church, so to speak, and how they navigate, especially going through politics and stuff, because it was never supposed to be like, it's not supposed to be like that. And so that's a very frustrating part for, let's say, the group I belong to or whatever.
I completely share that frustration.
Yeah.
I completely share it, because sometimes when I see atheists doing crazy stuff, I'm like, I got to be associated with these wackos who think that there's a million genders. And don't you find it to be interesting about some of those Christians that you have a problem with too? They're the ones that say, the atheists being in the room, they're the ones shoving atheism down their throats. Yet they don't even realize they're doing the same thing. And yet they're the ones saying, we need to promote the free exchange of ideas. We're not like the regressive left, we're different, we're better. And I say, yeah, well, if you guys are marketing yourselves as being above the regressive left, really caring about the free exchange of ideas, changing the right up, you have to show it.
Yeah.
And our presence at some of these conventions, it forces organizers to really show, do you really care about this anti-SJW movement that we've created over the past 5 years? Or are you just doing it for clicks? And the good news is, with us being at FreedomFest, we've gotten a good result of that people really do care and people really do appreciate our presence here.
And we can all come together for liberty.
For liberty. That's what we're all about.
Where can people go to do that, by the way?
People can go to atheistsforliberty.org. Again, that's atheistsforliberty.org. We have great membership programs. There's a Join Us button right in the center of the homepage. You get to see all the benefits you get by joining and signing up. We're on every major social media platform. First starting membership, by the way, is $1 a month. If you pay $1 a month at atheistforliberty.org, you get to join us, you get to be a part of our programs, you get to help us with what we do, and we really appreciate it. We're banding together with so many different people from different backgrounds to fight for liberty, to fight for this free exchange of ideas, and to defend the greatest nation in the world. And I want to say to all of you, thank you so much for having me on.
Yeah, thanks for coming on. It was a pleasure talking to you.
Thank you.
We appreciate it.
Take care.